Coconut shrimp? The tuxedo-clad waiter held out the silver platter of plump shrimp that were lightly battered, coated with toasted coconut, and fried to a golden crisp. Paula never said no to coconut shrimp. She took 2 and a paper napkin. "Thank you, Tony." The server nodded and wandered off to the next guest. Paula ate her shrimp and took a sip of Chardonnay as she glanced around the event and back at the hotel itself. Everything was going beautifully so far. About 120 people were sipping cocktails and nibbling on past hors d'oeuvres before heading into the hotel ballroom for the dinner part of the wine tasting. It was a perfect night, a warm, early June evening with soft breezes coming off the shore. If Paula turned, she could watch the sun set over Nantucket Harbor, but her attention was focused on the people milling about. She thought, not for the first time, when they'd held events on the front lawn, that it reminded her of the Great Gatsby. The rolling lawn was so expansive and green. The crowd attending the event was elegantly attired, the women in flowing dresses, the men in expensive suits, and in the distance there was a well-dressed family playing croquet. This event was the most desired of the many events that happened during the Nantucket Wine Festival. All week, various dinners and wine-related events took place at restaurants all over Nantucket. This was in addition to the wine festival itself, which was a fun event, an afternoon or evening of roaming around and tasting hundreds of wines. Of all the wine dinners, the one at the Whitley Hotel was the most expensive and sold out the fastest. Paula glanced at the time on her phone. She was waiting for her grandfather to arrive. She'd offered to pick him up at the airport, but he wouldn't hear of it and insisted she send one of the hotel drivers. He knew she was knee-deep in financials, as they were bringing in some kind of a consultant, and he'd asked her to pull years of financial data to send to him. He hadn't explained what the consultant was going to do with the information, but that was fairly typical, too. She knew he'd reveal his plans when he was ready to. Her grandfather always had a flair for drama. He'd texted her an hour ago that his plane had been delayed, and again she offered to come get him, but he insisted that she stay and keep an eye on the event. She wasn't in charge of it, that wasn't her role at the hotel, but he trusted her to be there and to help out if needed. Paula could see that the catering team had everything under control. She was surprised that her cousin Andrea, who was the hotel's general manager, wasn't there, though she supposed that's why her grandfather had insisted that she stay. Somehow he always knew everything that was going on, even when he wasn't around. She guessed that he and Andrea had been in touch earlier. Of all her many cousins, Andrea was her least favorite. She was much more assertive and bossier than Paula, who was reserved and content in her back-office role at the hotel. Her office was next to her grandfather's, and she handled all the accounting and financials for the hotel, but because they'd all grown up working there, she'd held just about every other role over the years, too, from cleaning the rooms as a teenager to serving in the restaurant and working at the front desk, checking people in. When she'd graduated from Amherst College with a business degree, she'd spent a few years working at a big hotel in Boston in their finance department before returning to Nantucket. She'd wanted to work at the hotel right after graduating, but her grandfather had insisted that she work elsewhere for a few years and experience living in Boston as a young person. She smiled, remembering how firm he'd been about it. She'd agreed, but she'd known even then that she'd return to Nantucket and to the Whitley. How could she not? Although she had to admit, as usual, that her grandfather had been right. It was a good experience working in Boston at one of the big hotel chains. Like the Whitley, the hotel she worked for there was focused on offering luxury and superior customer service. She learned a few things during her time there that they then implemented at the Whitley, and after 3 years of living and working in Boston, she was more than ready to go home. Boston was fun, but it wasn't Nantucket. It was hard to explain to people who hadn't been to Nantucket, but Paula always breathed a sigh of relief when she drove over the Cape Cod Canal, leaving Boston behind. And then again when she boarded the ferry in Hyannis and they set off to Nantucket. The air felt fresher, cleaner somehow on Nantucket, and it was just home. Her mother, of course, had been thrilled when Paula decided to move home and work at the Whitley. Both of her parents had worked there over the years. Her father was first, managing all the grounds, and it's where he met her mother, when she worked at the front desk one summer break while in college.